I, 41 male, have been married to Jane, 37 female, for about 10 years now. We both have 2 kids from previous relationships. I have Tim, 19 male, and Harry, teen male, while she has Eve, 18 female, and Matt, teen male. About half a year ago, my father died and left us his house, which we moved into, selling our old house. When we moved in, Jane began asking that I put her name on the house as well, which I refused, since we agreed to have separate finances before we got married. Jane didn't like this and started acting out at home, not helping out, leaving the house for hours, and not responding to my texts or calls. When I asked her why she was doing this, she said it wasn't her house, so she shouldn't have to help out. This didn't help my relationship with her daughter, who's never really liked me, in contrast to her brother, who adores me and is best friends with Harry. She often shouts that I'm not her dad, so I should leave her alone, which is hurtful, but I just let it go. Still, it got to the point that one day Jane, Eve, and I got into an argument, and out of spite I wrote Eve out of my will. If she wasn't going to see me as a father, then she wasn't entitled to my money. A few weeks ago, Eve had a festival and asked to use my car to go. I told her no, as I'd have to take the car to work. She asked why I didn't just take Uber, and I said that I had all my students' assignments and other materials in my car, so it's like convenient storage. She went into a mood and went to her room. Come the day before the festival, I wake up to go to work, and my car isn't there. I had to call in sick to work and call everyone to find out where my car had gone. I called the police to report a stolen vehicle, and a few hours later, I get an angry call from Jane shouting at me for getting Eve arrested. It turns out that Eve and her friends broke into my car the night before and took it so they could go to the festival. When they got home from the station, they went off on me and accused me of hating Eve and wanting her to suffer in jail. I just went to sleep because I was already too stressed out for the day. Come the next morning, I found out that Jane had gone through my folders and seen my will and told Eve. Eve smashed her brother Matt's gaming PC that I'd bought for him, saying that he doesn't deserve anything from that monster. When I found out, I was livid. Her mother tried to defend her, and I wasn't having any of it. I just ended up kicking Eve out of my house. Jane shouted at me saying how could I do that to her and that I'm a selfish monster. I didn't care. I just let her talk while Eve packed her things. Jane's been sleeping in Eve's room now. She goes to work, orders takeaway for herself, and just stays in the room. I sometimes overhear her talking trash about me on the phone. Eve has been staying with her aunt on the other side of the city. I feel bad since I just wanted to give the kids a real family and now I've just gone and ruined it for them. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot, but Eve isn't the main issue. Your wife is. Provided that you split the money from the house you had before you moved into your father's house, there's no real issue there since you already had separate finances. Jane's response was immature and gave Eve tacit permission to act out. Then she egged her on more by sharing your will. Eve stole your car. You had every right to call the police. She also destroyed her brother's PC out of spite. Family therapy if you want to save this sunken ship. You're also not blameless, as it's petty to write someone out of your will out of spite, rather than try to work on the relationship. And describing his wife's behaviour as acting out, as one might describe a child's behaviour? I had to go back to the story's beginning to make sure I had the names straight. Also, I suspect OP hasn't told us all he should, considering about the home ownership situation. Frankly, I think the marriage is likely over. I think OP owned the previous home and it was all in his name, so the money from the sale went to him, which is fair. I don't think Eve deserves the chance to work things out. She is an adult and she has no excuses to just treat people like crap, especially the person housing them. Not the idiot OP, divorce Jane ASAP. Kick her out as well. You and your kids don't need this type of abuse. P.S. If Jane is going to act like a roommate, then treat her one. Make sure she pays rent, etc. Divorce her and keep Matt. That said, all of Eve's actions are her own. She's 18 and an adult, and breaking into and stealing a car, and destroying a gaming PC which can cost £1,000 to £5,000 plus, are all criminal offences. Regardless of what's going on between you and Jane, you should not defend her daughter's criminal actions, especially stealing a car with student files in it and trashing her brother's computer. Alright, I confess that I'm not sure how I'm the idiot, but my wife and my mother are both firmly against me, so I'm putting this out here for a second opinion. I'm a guy, if that matters. My wife has been out of the country for the last 2 months on business. During that time, the house next to ours got sold and a lesbian couple and their daughter moved in. Their daughter is the same age as ours, pre-tween, and in the same class, so they've become good friends and play together. I don't know about best friends, but good friends. The couple themselves are Susan and Molly, fake names of course, and while I've never asked their ages, Susan is visibly in her late 40s or so, while Molly's in her early to mid-20s. My wife FaceTimes a lot and has heard about Susan and Molly and their daughter, largely from our daughter, but to a lesser extent from me. I never bothered to tell her about the age difference because, well, it's none of my business and I don't care. On the other hand, my younger sister is Molly's age, is also gay, and loses her mind over Kate Blanchett and Rachel Weisz, so I guess I'm just used to this sort of thing. Well, my wife came home, met our new neighbours, was noticeably cold to them, and blew up at me when we got home. She told me that either Susan was a creep or Molly was a shallow gold digger, and how dare I let her daughter anywhere near them. She thinks there's no way I wouldn't have considered that the age difference was a red flag, and that I deliberately tried to hide it from her. Again, it never occurred to me to mention it. I tried pointing out that it seemed unlikely that Molly would be a gold digger since we're not exactly living in the swankiest of suburbs, and they were able to adopt a child together, so they must be fairly healthy as a couple. Unfortunately, this just made my wife angrier, and she's been forbidding our daughter from seeing her friend and has gotten my mother on her side. So, am I the idiot? Should I have mentioned this? Not the idiot. What a weird way to find out your wife is a psycho. Your wife is being awfully judgmental about people she knows absolutely nothing about. Forbidding your kid to play with her next-door neighbour because of assumptions about her parents is way over the top. Why don't you get to know Molly and Susan better and find out the answers to some of these questions before you let your wife's imagination run rampant through the whole neighbourhood? A 20-ish age gap and you're not even sure what it is isn't worth mentioning when it's not yours. Your wife is somehow triggered and this is not a rational reaction. Also, what woman expects her husband to 1. Accurately identify the ages of women he's not paying attention to, and 2. Care enough to mention it? Most husbands don't notice when their wife gets a haircut. The age gap between neighbours is not going to register. I don't understand how your wife thinks she knows how old people are. Maybe one of them got Botox or the other has weathered skin. There were 8 years between my parents, and it always looked like 20 because my mom aged well and my father didn't. It sounds like your wife has some separate issues that have nothing to do with your neighbour's age gap. My female 25 dad passed away days ago. My sister's husband, 31, said he couldn't be present for the funeral because he had to go on a business trip out of town, which devastated my sister. She's got so much on her plate: pregnancy, my nephew, and now dad's death. Brother-in-law is a grade A workaholic, and it's affected his social life, but he refuses to admit it. The day of the funeral, my boyfriend was the one driving us. We drove past my brother-in-law's workplace at 8 p.m. and saw his car in the parking lot. I couldn't believe it. I know his car well since he used to drive me to school with it sometimes. So I took a picture of it and sent it to my sister. My sister was losing it, so my boyfriend suggested we bail. He dropped me off at my friend's house, and later I found out that my sister found out that her husband was in town the entire time, but lied, so he didn't have to skip work for the funeral. There was a huge blow-up and he called me yelling, saying I had no business stalking him at his workplace and taking pictures of his vehicle. My family is mad at him, but also at me because they said I stirred crap and caused my sister more trouble now that she's arguing with brother-in-law about him purposely missing the funeral. My boyfriend said I did the right thing. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Brother-in-law was lying and got caught. Also, if he was supposedly out of town, where was he spending the nights? Who was he spending the night with? Of course, you will be punished as the messenger, and you did add to your sister's stress at the moment. That said, you may have saved her years of lies and deceptions of dealing with someone who would show his wife so little support. My guess is a hotel near his work so that he wouldn't have to be on the road long enough to be spotted when he went to work. My dad did this a lot around family reunion times. Honestly, I think OP should have held this for a bit or sat the sister down to let her know what she saw. On the day of the funeral, the sister was an emotional mess. I'm not sure that was the correct time to send her a text message letting her know that her husband betrayed her by lying and potentially more. Are you people high? Of course not, the idiot. Is everyone forgetting not only is he lying, but he's not there to support his wife during this difficult time when she needs him? Liars always end up getting caught anyway. He doesn't sound like a great brother-in-law anyway. I mean, leaving his pregnant and grieving wife with a small child because he doesn't want to miss work? Is he trying to cure cancer? A quick tip. Working late and working out of town are popular nicknames for mistresses, probably a co-worker he went home with. I'd gone to Vegas with a few friends, my boyfriend and my boyfriend's brother. We went to a hypnotism show after going out for drinks. The drinks hit me pretty hard when I walked in. I was having a great time until the part where they called people up on stage, and they picked me. I was feeling pretty tipsy and not wanting to do it, so I shook my head no. But then my boyfriend grabbed me and tried to pull me up to the stage. I tried to resist being pulled along, but he was really yanking me up there. We'd gotten the attention of the rest of the audience and they were all cheering for him to pull me up there, and I was kind of angry because first, I was feeling a little tipsy and nauseous, and second, because if my boyfriend had not wanted to do something, I'd respect that. I've often even been the bad guy, saying no to things for him so that he wouldn't have to because of social anxiety. So I was angry that he didn't respect it the other way round. So when he tried to pull me up the stairs to the stage, I just went completely limp. 170 pounds of dead weight collapsing onto the bottom stair. I also started laughing at the whole situation. Remember, tipsy. He tried to lift me up and I went full noodly, and then his brother joined in and they both managed to lift me up but couldn't keep a hold of me, so I just kept sliding to the ground. The crowd was laughing, but more at the guys now. Some people were joking about how the guys couldn't even lift a girl together. Someone in the crowd yelled out to ask if I was okay, and I yelled back, "No, I think I've suddenly found myself single. I wasn't expecting that tonight." The hypnotist cracked a few jokes and then said that he couldn't hypnotize someone who was obviously not open to persuasion of any sort. I felt kind of bad for disrupting the show, though maybe he wasn't bothered, it was a comedy show after all. So I grabbed my friends and headed out, telling my boyfriend not to follow me. They took me back to their hotel room and told me to sleep it off, figuring I hadn't meant what I'd said about the breakup. But in the morning, my now ex-boyfriend came by wanting to talk, and I stood by what I said, that it was over. I was angry that I'd always been sensitive to his needs, even letting him cast me as the bad guy to get out of plans he didn't want to. But he saw my consent as a joke? I was over it. He was furious, saying I was being rash. I'd humiliated him by dumping him in front of a crowd and he didn't even get it. How if I didn't want a scene, I made a bigger scene? I didn't feel like I was being rash. I want a partner who doesn't think it's funny to hear my no and ignore it. Not just ignore it, but think it's funny to push me to do the crap I said no to anyway. Am I the idiot for how I reacted? Not the idiot. It's not the situation. It's the principle of it. You said no and showed a lot of resistance before eventually getting so frustrated that you broke up with him. He had plenty of time to rectify the situation, but kept pushing you. It's not fair of him at all, and I don't blame you for dumping him. I would have been mortified and likely unable to defend myself in your position because I have such awful social anxiety. Good for you for standing your ground, or dropping to your ground, and not putting up with BS from a partner who should have your back and respect your autonomy. A good partner respects your boundaries. And don't worry about the show. Won't be the first time the hypnotist has seen that, and won't be the last, I'm sure. I, 22 female, recently found out that my boyfriend, 23 of nearly 2 years, has never been to an aquarium or zoo or anything like that. Growing up, his family didn't have much money, so they never really took day trips. I decided to fix that and planned a date on which I would surprise him. We'd been going to the aquarium that I went to growing up, going out for McDonald's, and stopping by the pier to hit up some of the fair rides there. All my treat. Basically, a classic kids' day trip that he never got to do growing up. We had the date and it was a blast. My boyfriend loved every minute of it and got super emotional at some points. A win of a date and everyone was happy. Until I was talking about it with my family recently. I've got a younger brother who's a pre-tween. My parents were annoyed that I'd done this kid-friendly day and not taken my brother-in-law to give them a break, and even loudly talked about all the fun the three of us could have had together. My brother heard this as they weren't exactly being quiet and got super upset as he wanted to go to the aquarium and get McDonald's and go on rides. I was kind of angry at them for doing this and pointed out it was a date with my boyfriend, and bringing a kid would be weird, though I promised my brother I'd take him out for McDonald's tomorrow. Not good enough, apparently. My parents pointed out how I still live with them, so I need to be more considerate of my little brother and their needing time. Now, I pay rent and help out around the house. I'm not exactly someone milking my parents dry, and I also babysit my brother all the time. I don't think it's unreasonable to want to have a date with my boyfriend alone, even if it's a kid-friendly date. My family seemed to think, though, as it wasn't a romantic one, I should have. Not the idiot. Yeah, he's your brother, but he's their son, not yours. It's not your responsibility to take care of your brother so they can have free time. They chose to have children, so they must take care of and parent their child. A date isn't a kid-friendly event. It's romantic and personal, not suitable for a kid. Say, what would we have done with him while we had intimacy and made out in the car at Lookout Point, with a straight face? But seriously, not the idiot. If they need a break, they need to ask. As you say, you pay rent, among other things. You're not a leech. OMG, it was a special day between the two of you. And if you want a special day with your brother, you can do that too, without your boyfriend. Or your parents could go to the aquarium with their son for some quality fun family time. The only way to solve this is by moving out, because your parents are already taking advantage of you, using you as free childcare in the first place. Please update us when you move out and they lose your free babysitting duties.